Imagine a world where the only heartbeat left belongs to a single species. Humanity grew too vast, too hungry, and too desperate. We consumed everything. The forests fell to make room for cities, and the oceans were emptied to feed billions. The first things to go were the pets. They were taken by disease, scarcity, and the total collapse of the global ecosystem. By the time the last century of the old world ended, Earth was a silent graveyard of biodiversity. It was a planet of humans and absolutely nothing else, except for one man. This man refused to accept extinction as the final chapter of life on Earth. He lived for centuries, far beyond the natural human limit. Through a combination of gene therapy, nanomedicine, and a stubborn will to witness something better, he stayed alive. But he was utterly alone. He walked through the ruins of megacities that once buzzed with life, now filled only with the ghosts of a dead civilization. He was the last witness to a world that had forgotten how to coexist with nature. Everything changed when he stepped into the ruins of an abandoned biolab. There, in the shadows of the decaying equipment, he found them. A small, feral, cat-like species had managed to survive the collapse. They were fast-breeding, resilient, and incredibly curious. They had adapted to the concrete jungles where humans had failed. In their eyes, the man saw a spark. It was the same spark of intelligence and curiosity that humanity had lost long ago. He realized that if life was to continue, it would not be through humans, it would be through them. With the help of the last functioning supercomputers and a massive genetic archive, he began what he called the Uplift program. This was not just breeding, it was guided evolution. Generation by generation, he acted as a biological sculptor. He carefully added human DNA to their genetic code. He expanded their brain capacity to allow for complex thought. He reshaped their paws into hands with opposable thumbs so they could build. He refined their vocal cords so they could speak, and he extended their lifespans so they could learn. He did not do this alone. He used advanced robotics to raise the litters and artificial intelligence to model their future. He was the architect of a new race. Over the course of several centuries, the changes became permanent. They stood upright. They spoke. They reasoned. And most importantly, they dreamed. They became the Felis sapiens, the cat-descended heirs of a dead world. They were the children of three minds. They possessed their original animal instincts, their new human DNA, and the vast knowledge of the supercomputers that taught them. This unique tri-intelligence made them unlike any species that had ever walked the earth. They saw patterns in emotions that humans often missed. They thought in a complex blend of images, sense, and logic. Their art was a beautiful mix of raw instinct and high mathematics. They built a culture centered around balance, gratitude, and memory. And at the very center of their world was the man they called the Last Father. He was the one who gave them minds, and they loved him for it. Their language was a testament to their connection with the world. They used words like yan to describe the settled result of a process, and lun to describe something that was approaching or sensed. To understand how they lived, you only have to look at a conversation between two Felis sapiens named Clarcy and Jatine. Clarcy was tending to the first garden when Jatine returned from a long journey. She did not need to turn around to know it was him. She recognized the rhythm of his footsteps. In their tongue, Clarcy told him that the forest felt quiet without him. She used the word yan to show she was glad he was near. Jatine explained that he had been stabilizing the northern soil with the help of the robots. He used the word lun to describe the changes he sensed in the earth. Their conversation was not just about facts. It was about the shifting, waking, and growing of the world around them. They used verbs like morkin and akin to describe the earth as if it were a living, breathing thing. This was the legacy the Father had built. But time is a predator that no amount of technology can escape forever. Even with his advanced medicine, the Father's DNA began to fail. His cells, stretched across centuries of life, were breaking down. His mind began to flicker like a dying candle. When the Felis sapiens realized their creator was dying, they were struck by a wave of panic. Their logic was simple. He had given them his DNA to make them what they were. Now they believed they must give him theirs to keep him alive. They attempted the impossible, a process they called the reverse uplift. They grafted their own regenerative genes into his body. They infused his aging system with their superior immune systems. They rewrote his senses, his bones, and his instincts. For a time, it actually worked. The father became a hybrid, a bridge between the old world and the new. It slowed the decay and gave him a few more years of clarity. He was able to watch his children flourish in ways he never imagined. He saw them build their first cities, not out of concrete and steel, but in harmony with the recovering biosphere. He listened to their first philosophies and watched them draw their first star maps. They were not just looking at the ground, they were looking at the stars, dreaming of leaving Earth to spread life elsewhere. But the father knew the truth. He was born human, and they were born from him. The bridge could never be fully crossed. He was a relic of a past that had to end so their future could truly begin. In his final years, the Felis sapiens stayed by his side constantly. They cared for him with a level of empathy that was core to their being. They sang to him in the language he had helped them create, a melody of instinct and logic. They told him stories of the cities they would build and the worlds they would discover. When the end finally came, the father spoke his last words to the thousands of eyes watching him. He told them to live better than we did. He died surrounded by the species he had created from the ashes of his own. He was not alone. He was never alone again. To honor him, the Felis sapiens built a monument that reached toward the heavens. They called it the Father's Spire. It was a massive tower of stone and steel, engraved with the double helix of the DNA he had shared with them. It served as a reminder of the world that died and the man who saved the light of intelligence. As the centuries passed, the Felis sapiens became the new stewards of the planet. They rebuilt the biosphere, acting as guardians rather than conquerors. They carried the Father's memory into the stars, just as he had hoped. They became the new thinkers, the new dreamers, and the new people of the galaxy. From the oldest elders to the youngest litters, they told the same story. We were animals, he made us people, and we returned the gift.